The first time I saw Ethan Caldwell, he was bleeding out in an alley behind a Chicago nightclub, and I was the only thing standing between him and a knife-wielding fanatic. I didn't think twice. My training kicked in, and I tackled the guy, pinning him to the asphalt until the cops arrived. Ethan, all sharp cheekbones and trembling hands, looked at me like I was his lifeline, and that's when I knew. This job was going to be trouble. My name's Lucas Reyes, 28, ex-Marine turned private security. I'd been hired to protect Ethan, a 32-year-old tech wunderkind whose startup, Nexus AI, was shaking up Silicon Valley and drawing unhinged fans like moths to a flame. Ethan wasn't just a CEO, he was a public figure, a queer icon who'd come out in a viral TED Talk that had half the internet swooning and the other half sending death threats. My job was simple, keep him alive. No emotions, no distractions, just focus. But 3 months into the gig, the internet had other plans. It started with a fanfic. I was scrolling through my phone during a late-night shift outside Ethan's Manhattan penthouse when I stumbled across a site called Fandom Flare. Someone had written a 10,000-word story about Evan and Luca, a barely veiled version of us. In it, I was a brooding bodyguard with a heart of gold, and Ethan was a tortured genius who fell for me after I saved him from a fictional assassination plot. The prose was cheesy, but the comments? Hundreds of them, screaming about how we were destined. I laughed it off, until I noticed Ethan blushing when our eyes met the next morning. "Lucas, you seen this?" Ethan asked, holding up his tablet during breakfast in his sleek kitchen. His voice was casual, but his hazel eyes flickered with something I couldn't place. He showed me a fanfic thread with thousands of upvotes, complete with fan art of us holding hands under a starry sky. I snorted, but my pulse quickened. "They've got us married in chapter 3, he teased, and I muttered something about crazy fans to hide the heat creeping up my neck. The problem was, the fanfics weren't just a one-off. They spread like wildfire across Fandom Flare, Twitter, and even Reddit. Every week, new stories popped up, some sweet, some steamy, all painting me and Ethan as soulmates. I tried to ignore them, but they were everywhere. My buddy Marcus, another bodyguard, sent me links with laughing emojis. My sister in Miami texted, "You famous now, huh?" Even Ethan's PR team started joking about leveraging the buzz. But the more I read, the harder it was to stay professional. The stories were fiction, sure, but they were digging up feelings I'd buried deep. Feelings I wasn't supposed to have for my boss. Ethan didn't help. He was charming, infuriatingly so, with a quick wit and a smile that could disarm anyone. He'd insist on late-night coffee runs, just the two of us, or ask me to stay after shifts to talk strategy, which usually meant debating sci-fi movies over whiskey. I told myself it was just his personality, open, warm, a little flirty with everyone. But then there was the way he'd linger when our shoulders brushed, or how his voice softened when he said my name. I was trained to notice details, and the details were screaming. Ethan wasn't just my client anymore. One night, after a long day dodging paparazzi at a Nexus AI event in San Francisco, we ended up in a quiet diner off the highway. Ethan was exhausted, his tie loosened, hair a mess. I sat across from him, scanning the room out of habit, but my eyes kept drifting back to him. "You ever think about it?" he asked suddenly, his voice low. "What they write about us?" I froze, my coffee cup halfway to my mouth. "It's just stories, Ethan. People with too much time." He leaned forward, elbows on the table, his gaze pinning me in place. "But what if it's not just stories? What if they're seeing something we're too scared to admit?" My heart slammed against my ribs. I wanted to laugh it off, to change the subject, but the air between us crackled with something raw, something real. I opened my mouth to respond, but my phone buzzed, a security alert. A stalker had just posted Ethan's location online. Duty called, and the moment shattered. The alert wasn't a false alarm. By the time we got back to Ethan's hotel, the online chatter had escalated. Someone on Twitter had posted a blurry photo of us in the diner, captioned, "Evan and Luca, caught in the act. Bodyguard boyfriends." The hashtag was trending by morning, and Ethan's inbox was flooded with messages, some adoring, some vicious. My job was to keep him safe, but how do you protect someone from the internet? I doubled down on security protocols, installing new encryption on his devices and coordinating with local police. But the fanfic frenzy was making it harder to spot real threats. Every day, I sifted through posts tagged bodyguard boyfriends, trying to separate harmless shippers from potential dangers. One user, Starcross Scribe, stood out. Their stories were vivid, almost too accurate, like they knew details about Ethan's schedule that weren't public. I flagged their account, but they kept posting, each story more intense, more personal. Ethan, meanwhile, was unraveling. The pressure of Nexus AI's upcoming IPO, combined with the online chaos, was getting to him. I found him one morning in his Brooklyn office, staring out the window, his usually vibrant energy dulled. "I'm tired, Lucas," he admitted, his voice barely above a whisper. "Tired of being a symbol, a target, a fantasy. I just want to be me." I wanted to reach out, to tell him he wasn't alone, but I kept my distance. "You're doing fine," I said, my tone clipped, professional. "We'll get through this." He turned, his eyes searching mine. "We? So you're in this with me?" I swallowed hard. "It's my job." His face fell, and I hated myself for it. But what was I supposed to say? That every time he smiled, I forgot how to breathe? That I'd read every damn fanfic, hoping they were right about us? I was his bodyguard, not his boyfriend. Crossing that line could cost me everything: my focus, my career, his safety. The breaking point came at a Nexus AI gala in Los Angeles. Ethan was the keynote speaker, dazzling the crowd in a tailored suit, his charisma lighting up the room. I stood at the edge, scanning for threats, when I noticed a figure lingering near the stage. They were young, maybe 20, with a nervous energy that set off alarms in my head. I moved closer, catching their muttering. "He's mine, not yours." Before I could act, they lunged toward Ethan, a folded piece of paper in their hand. I tackled them in seconds, the crowd gasping as security swarmed. The paper turned out to be a printed fanfic, another Evan and Luca story, this one by Star-Crossed Scribe. The kid was just a fan, but the incident shook Ethan. Back at the hotel, he paced his suite, hands shaking. "They think they know me," he said, voice raw. "They think they own me." I stepped closer, breaking my own rules. "They don't. I see you, Ethan. The real you." He stopped, his eyes locking onto mine, and for a moment, the world stopped too. Then he closed the distance, his hand brushing my arm. "Do you, Lucas? Do you really?" I didn't pull away. I should have, but I didn't. That night in the hotel changed everything. Ethan's touch lingered on my arm, and I let it. We didn't kiss, didn't cross that final line, but the air between us was heavy with unspoken promises. I left his suite at dawn, my mind a war zone of duty versus desire. I was trained to neutralize threats, but no training prepared me for this. The fanfics kept coming, and Star-Crossed Scribe's stories grew darker. They wrote about Evan being betrayed by Luca, painting me as a traitor who'd abandoned him. I couldn't shake the feeling that they were watching us, their words too close to our reality. I dug deeper, tracing their IP to a coffee shop in Seattle. It wasn't much, but it was enough to make me paranoid. I started sleeping less, checking Ethan's security feeds obsessively, my instincts screaming that something was coming. Ethan noticed. "You're killing yourself over this," he said one evening in his DC apartment, where we'd relocated for a conference. He handed me a glass of water, his fingers grazing mine. "I need you, Lucas. Not just as my bodyguard." I set the glass down, my jaw tight. "You don't know what you're asking." "I know exactly what I'm asking," he shot back, stepping closer. "I'm asking you to stop pretending you don't feel this too." I wanted to argue, to tell him it was impossible, but the truth was clawing its way out. I'd fallen for him. His courage, his vulnerability, the way he made me feel seen in a way I hadn't since the Marines. But every time I let myself imagine us together, I saw the risks: a distracted bodyguard, a vulnerable client, a headline that could ruin us both. Before I could respond, my phone pinged with another alert. Star-Crossed Scribe had posted again, a story where Luca failed to save Evan from a fatal attack. The details were chilling. The location matched the DC conference center, down to the room number. I grabbed Ethan's arm, pulling him toward the door. "We're leaving. Now." We relocated to a safe house in Virginia, a nondescript cabin tucked in the woods. Ethan was shaken but tried to hide it, cracking jokes about rustic romance. I wasn't laughing. I spent the night running background checks, my gut telling me Star-Crossed Scribe wasn't just a fan. By morning, I had a lead. A name: Claire Hensley, a 24-year-old former Nexus AI intern with a history of erratic behavior. She'd been fired for leaking company secrets, and her fanfic account was her revenge. I showed Ethan the evidence, expecting him to be relieved. Instead, he looked crushed. "She worked for me," he whispered. "I trusted her." "You couldn't have known," I said, my hand resting on his shoulder. It was the first time I'd touched him without hesitation, and it felt like a dam breaking. The safe house was our cocoon, a fragile bubble where the world's noise faded. Ethan and I spent days there, waiting for the police to track Claire. We cooked terrible meals, argued about music, and talked about things we'd never dared before: his fear of failing Nexus AI, my guilt over comrades I'd lost overseas. Each night, we grew closer, our walls crumbling. One evening, under a sky full of stars, he kissed me. It was soft, tentative, but it set my world on fire. "I'm not imagining this, am I?" he murmured against my lips. "No," I said, my voice rough. "This is real." But reality was closing in. Claire's posts hadn't stopped. They'd gotten worse. She'd hacked Ethan's personal email, leaking private messages to fandom flare. The internet exploded with speculation, twisting our stolen moments into tabloid fodder. Ethan's board pressured him to step down, citing distractions. My agency questioned my professionalism, hinting at termination. We were fighting a war on two fronts: Claire's vendetta and our own hearts. I tracked Claire to a motel outside Baltimore, working with a private investigator. She was unhinged but not dangerous, more obsessed with controlling Ethan's narrative than harming him physically. The police arrested her, and the post stopped, but the damage was done. Ethan's reputation was battered, and I was on thin ice with my job. Back in New York, we faced a choice. "We can't keep doing this halfway," Ethan said, his voice steady despite the chaos. "I want you, Lucas. All of you. But I need to know you're in." I hesitated, the weight of my duty pressing down. But then I looked at him, really looked, and saw the man who'd trusted me with his life, who'd made me believe in something beyond survival. "I'm in," I said, and meant it. We went public on our terms. Ethan posted a statement on Twitter, simple and honest. "I'm in love with Lucas Reyes. He's more than my bodyguard. He's my partner." The internet lost its mind, but for once, the noise didn't matter. We'd claimed our story, not the fanfics, not the headlines. I left my agency, starting my own security firm with Marcus's help. Ethan stepped back from Nexus AI's daily operations, letting his team take the reins while he focused on advocacy for queer youth. Claire's trial came and went. She got probation and therapy, a small victory for redemption over punishment. The fanfics faded, replaced by real stories of us. Messy, imperfect, but ours. One autumn evening, we sat on a bench in Central Park, the same one from that first viral photo. Ethan leaned against me, his hand warm in mine. They were wrong about a lot, he said, smiling. But they got one thing right. We were always meant to find each other. I kissed his forehead, the city fading around us. The world would keep spinning, with its threats and its noise, but we built something stronger. Love, it turned out, was the best defense.